Do you have an update on Kennedy Brooks?
Yeah, he's doing good. Yep, all good. All good. He'll play this week.
News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is not a huge week for the Oklahoma Sooners. I don't know how I can't sell this. It's Kansas. I'm sorry.
That mentality, you're going to go up in there and get beat.
I'm not playing, thank God. Eddie he's the closest one of us that comes to actually playing a football game by shooting a football game. And apparently,
Watch it. I don't know if you can say that these days.
Apparently, you're going to be in some weather this weekend.
Yeah, there's a chance looks like 70% chance of storms on Saturday until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So
and we came in here.
Not the best news I've ever heard.
We came in here and Bob was really distraught by the weather.
It's an ugly game.
Until Josh reminded him, you're sitting in a press box, idiot. Eddie's the one that has to stand out
the
in the
window
rain.
Bob's looking through might get some water on it.
I mean,
it's going to look awful for my climate control.
An ugly game, and now that makes it even less appealing.
I don't think it really would have mattered. It could be sunny and 66. It's going to be an ugly game.
But it might go fast.
I hope that Bill.
It might go faster though if they run the ball, right?
I hope that
both teams run the ball.
Bill Self shows up in the press box, just starts handing out $100 bills. Yeah, F you.
Oh, he's only going to have about.
Can't catch me.
He's only going to have to live in Lawrence for about another year. So
he used to make a little. That was back in the days when John Rohde was still a scribe, or I guess he still kind of is part time. But he would come up there in the press box during games and just slap everybody on the back and be all buddy with all the Oklahoman media that he remembered.
He still does that every once in a while.
Was Turner Gill hoping he wasn't going to pay attention to the game that was going on the field, or what was the deal?
No, Bill Self would have to hold on to all the cell phones that Turner Gill took up before the game. Is he even still in coaching? Is Turner Gill still a football coach?
That's a good question.
Look at it.
I did meet someone over the weekend who wanted to challenge you to.
He is the executive director of student, athlete, and staff development at the University of Arkansas.
Wow. Another created position.
Success begets success. I mean, it just follows itself.
He was the head coach at Liberty for the last 6 years.
He was a really good coach at Buffalo.
Yeah, and then he took over Kansas.
Did he have
it all
Khalil
went
Mack
downhill.
when he was at Buffalo?
I believe so.
No,
he would have been.
He'd been way before Mack.
Yeah, that would have been way older.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, I did meet someone over the weekend that is more than willing to challenge you and name that head coach trivia.
Bring it on.
He said, he didn't say you were embarrassing, but he did point out that we gave you two coaches and you didn't know either one.
That were both out of the Power Five. I said the caveat is Power
Oregon
Five.
State.
Oregon State.
State.
Well, nobody. I mean, who cares about Oregon State? Like, I'm not convinced that Oregon State's a Division I football program.
That's a fair point.
They didn't look. Yeah, they allowed Mike Riley to hide in Corvallis for a long time.
Yeah, that's wild. I don't think that they're going to be turning it around anytime soon either.
And
we know when they start paying players, and they're going to have the advantage over everybody.
How underrated is Dennis Erickson? Dennis Erickson won a lot at Oregon State.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty impressive when you think about it.
I mean, he was a good coach at Miami.
Sure, yeah,
he just had to follow Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, which, I mean, Jimmy, if he'd have stayed in college, would have been one of the all-time greats.
Let's face it. I mean, I have no idea other than...
It used to be fun when Oregon State was good. That was kind of like the Texas Tech of the Pac-12. Weird things would happen when people went to Corvallis, especially USC.
USC got beat there.
A couple times, didn't they?
The Rogers boys.
I think
That's right.
They might have lost to USC the year USC smacked OU around, didn't they? Or no, they were undefeated that year. It was the year before. I think.
Yeah, because it was like a
year
it was
before,
a
year
Thursday
after.
night
I can't
game or
remember.
something.
I remember watching that game.
It was like 2007-ish because I was out. I was done with college when that game happened.
So OU is getting ready to play Kansas, and that's why we're talking about anything else besides OU.
Oh, the poor Jayhawks.
Which you thought that, after that Boston College win, I was like, wow, this is Les Miles really changing everything. And then they played TCU, and oh my God, it was a disaster. And TCU had just lost to SMU.
Boston College must have just had I don't think they're not a good football program or not a good football team this year, but that must have just been an absolutely terrible night for, what are they, the Eagles? Because, the ACC is awful. But
Screaming Eagles, Fighting Eagles.
They came back and beat Rutgers the next week, and then I think they beat Wake Forest last week. I mean, if you're losing to Kansas by 24 points, I would expect you to get beat by Rutgers, but...
There's just a lot of weird stuff going on. North Carolina, Clemson is weird. Like, how does that happen? Like, Clemson is just not clicking on all cylinders right now.
Does it feel like Florida State 2013, 2014, where they're just going to always be ranked high just because of what they did the year before?
I think that, too, that...
Well, if you win a national championship and you have the quarterback coming back, the running back, I mean,
that's what happened with the Seminoles, and then the Ducks destroyed them in the Rose Bowl because they just weren't that good, but you had no way of ever knowing.
I still think they're pretty good. I just don't think that they have a whole lot to play for. I mean, they could show up with their 50% game and still beat everybody in the ACC.
That's the problem, is they don't really have to raise their level of play.
Their big game
to match anybody else.
Their big game was A&M, and
A&M's
I don't think A&M's very good.
Yeah, that Arkansas A&M game was weird. You got all these teams. I mean, Baylor beating Iowa State at home is not weird, but still, this is. I mean,
I feel like we were so far ahead of the curve as far as Iowa State goes, and I still think that they're going to be a decent football team. Like, I wouldn't want to go play up in Ames, but
they're still an 8-win team. I mean, when it all comes down to it.
It's what we talked about right at the beginning of the season, too, that Brock Purdy's just an okay quarterback. He's not I don't think he's great. Yeah. I don't think he's just anything to...
He's benefited from having a defense
and two superstars at the college level. And I think
great running back.
Montgomery's obviously doing well with the Bears, and what is Butler still in Arizona?
He got hurt.
Okay.
But I don't think he was out for the season, but I know he got hurt early in one of the preseason games. So, but yeah, I mean, Iowa State is like their win over Oklahoma in Norman totally got people thinking
changed the trajectory
more highly of that program than probably what it should have been.
And then they beat TCU a couple of weeks later. They had two top 5 wins. This is crazy.
But like, you look at Oklahoma State was a very average football team last year. It was like 48-42 or something in Stillwater last year when they played. Like, I really think, and there's nothing that really stands out about Oklahoma State other than a really good running back and a quarterback that's better than I thought. But is there any argument that they're not the third best team in the conference?
No, I think that's
like, is it
far and
seems
away
like,
between them and Baylor,
like crystal
maybe
clear, right? That they're number 3 at least.
Yeah, I guess you could make an argument for Baylor. I mean, I thought that obviously the fourth quarter wasn't very kind to them on Saturday, but I mean, through 3 quarters, I started thinking, well, maybe this is kind of the Baylor team that everybody thought they were going to be going into the season. Matt Rule gets a big extension over the weekend as well. So,
and I mean, you want to say, well, okay, we're waiting until Texas. We want to see OU get tested before we really know what they have. And that's true. But at the same time, I mean, 55-16 win over Tech is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, it's not – it's kind of like Ohio State got all that love because they beat Nebraska. Nebraska's terrible, but people just like automatically assume that Nebraska's pretty decent because why else would College Game Day have gone there?
Well, they just talked themselves into thinking that Nebraska was going to be this, and they still, I mean, that division is so bad that Nebraska plays in the Big Ten that they still probably could have a pathway to get to the Big Ten championship.
And it's the same thing we talk about come playoffs every year. Nebraska is a name program. Whether they should be or not anymore, they are. Texas Tech, even, I mean, you could say over the last, decade or so, Texas Tech's had more success than Nebraska has.
Oh, yeah.
But, you're not – if you asked the average college football fan about that, they'd tell you, oh, Nebraska, sure. Nebraska's been better. Like, just because it's Nebraska, they're just going to assume it's better and the talent's better and all this sort of things. And don't get me wrong, that's the worst Tech team I've seen in that decade. But still, to go house them by almost 40?
Without Alan Bowman, they're not.
Yeah.
They're not real good. But again, as I said, they actually made Jet Duffy look like a backup quarterback, which that's a win.
Sure.
If you're Oklahoma.
Sure. I guess kind of just
because he threw for 444 yards against Texas last year.
I would say that just from not the outside looking in, but just looking at the rest of Oklahoma's schedule, and Josh, I'd love to get your thoughts on the Tech game over the weekend, but I think right now that Oklahoma's two toughest games from here on out are kind of 1A and 1B. It's the next week at the Cotton Bowl, and then it's going to be really tough to go to Stillwater.
Yeah.
Now, I know that Oklahoma fans kind of laugh at that idea, but I think it's just it's going to be a tough game up there. It always is.
Yeah, I don't know how you'd even really make an argument for who the other game would be. Now, I will say
At
in
Baylor?
the conversation, well, I mean, you guys know, I've kind of liked that game as a bogey game all along, but that's more of like, I think the timing is kind of tough for Oklahoma, and Baylor's kind of in a, like they'll be kind of in a good spot. I think they might even be coming off a bye week. Like there was something about it that I really remember thinking like, ooh, that feels kind of funny. And Oklahoma always has that one road game where that kind of somebody sneaks up on them and may not beat them, but they give them a little more than you expect. So that one makes some sense to me. But those two, I mean, really the only other team that I think is in that conversation to be maybe the third team along with Oklahoma State is TCU. I still think TCU is pretty good, but I'm not. I think this next couple weeks we'll know a lot more when they play Iowa State and Kansas State. And I think we'll kind of know where they are.
I think the one thing
we know kind of what Kansas State is. We kind of learned what they were in Stillwater.
They're a bunch of overachievers. I mean,
Yeah.
like it's a
not there
good,
yet.
well-coached team, but
Sure.
they don't have the horses to match up with Tylan Wallace and Chuba Hubbard. I mean, they don't
They've
have.
got
those
some
guys.
good, special teams guys. I mean, returners, a skill guy here or there, but yeah, they just don't. They're just not. They're not on that level. They're not a championship level
That's fair.
team.
I think that's fair.
Well, because people always say, well, Snyder never recruited all that great. Yeah, right. Like he didn't do the big-time high school guys, but he always did really well in the JUCO ranks, and they had guys like Terrence Newman and some of the, you go back through the years where they really had some really good players, Jeff Kelly, some of those types.
And then they'd have the Locketts, the
Exactly.
entire Lockett family.
Yeah. I mean,
Who
which
I
provided
watched
almost.
Arizona, Seattle Sunday and saw Tyler Lockett out there still making plays.
But, over the last few years, you saw less and less of that. Like, there wasn't even those guys that, like, okay, they're, Kansas State really did a great eval here. They found this guy that nobody else bought into. You haven't seen those guys the last few years from Kansas State that just kind of came out of nowhere that you're like, holy crap, that guy's a great player.
I think the one thing that we do know is that OU has to go undefeated to make the playoff. I don't think there's any wiggle room.
No mulligan.
Oregon might be
year.
out, and they have what could be a great loss, but they need a lot of help to get back into it. I mean, anybody that has a loss needs help. I mean, I think Ohio State's probably going to roll through the Big Ten. I mean, I don't think Wisconsin can put up enough points to stop them.
But they'll meet up in the championship game, so that'll be a de facto playoff game.
And I mean, who else in the Big Ten is worth a damn?
Nobody.
Maybe Penn State. I don't think they are, but maybe.
Hey, the Gophers are undefeated. Let's not go to sleep yet, okay?
They almost lost to South Dakota
They have
State
the
in their
most.
opener.
They have 5 undefeated teams right now because of Iowa, Penn State, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Buckeyes. Even though
And
you don't trust in maybe just one of them, but
have you looked at Minnesota's schedule? There's a very real scenario where they're 8-0. I mean, a very real one.
Wow.
PJ Fleck.
Is that before they play Ohio State or something?
I think the next week's like Ohio State or Michigan or like somebody you're like, okay,
They could beat Michigan.
they could. It's probably Ohio State because that's the only team where I could say they're so clearly better. Like it would have to be Ohio State or Penn State. Those are the two teams that almost no matter what the scenario is, they're going to beat Minnesota.
You know who has the biggest built-in mulligan in the country right now is Auburn. Like if they have one loss, if they finish their season with one loss, well, one, they'll win the SEC championship, but that will be probably the most deserving one-loss team to ever make the college football playoff.
Yeah.
I mean, they play 4 top 10 teams the rest of the way.
It's going to be
including
crazy.
Florida
I think
this
3
weekend.
are on the road.
Well, they play at the Swamp this weekend, but I don't think Florida's a top 10 team.
No. I'm saying
Florida
Georgia,
sucks.
LSU, and Alabama. They still all play those,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Why-
and then Florida this weekend.
Yeah.
My God.
As long as Georgia makes the championship game
If
and Auburn
Florida,
makes the championship game.
if Florida and Texas meet on a neutral field, guys, I have Texas by almost 10.
Yeah, Florida's
Yes.
not good.
Florida's the worst
Florida's
top 10 team.
We do this with them. Like, everybody loves to talk about Notre Dame and Texas. Florida does this every year. Oh, they're good on defense. They have no offense. I've seen this story. I know how it goes. It ends at 9-3.
Florida has just replaced the. Oh God, I don't want to. I hope no Missouri fans hear this because I don't want the. Florida really. I mean, everybody's got to be Missouri in the SEC. Like, until Georgia came along, like until somebody gets knocked down and starts playing the real team. Like, there's always some outlier that doesn't have to play the schedule that everybody else has to play, and they end up looking like
In the SEC
they're
East,
doing
yeah,
something.
When you play in the East, you have a great chance of racking up wins until you play Georgia.
Hey, that's I love that about Georgia. At least now the SEC championship game's not just a de facto crowning of whoever comes out of the West.
Last year was Kentucky. You knew Kentucky wasn't that good, but they kept playing, kept winning in the East.
Hey, I won't have you disparage Terry Wilson. I won't stand for it.
So I think going to Kansas this week for Oklahoma, we haven't really seen them come out flat, and I think we
haven't given up a point yet.
We thought maybe UCLA would be that game because they looked so crappy going into that, and they played great in that game. But Lincoln Riley, I mean, really, the formula for him has been take the ball whenever you can. Let's get our offense going. Our defense, crank it up in the first quarter, and we'll just boat race these guys to halftime. And they've been doing that. It's a formula.
It does not matter. They've lost a toss twice and had their defense go out there 3-0 against Houston, 3-0 against Tech. They've won the
Bob's got
toss
all
twice,
kinds of stats in his
and they
mind.
wanted the ball, and it didn't matter against South Dakota or the Bruins. And they haven't given up a point yet in the first quarter.
So what you're saying is Oklahoma has a problem at the coin toss. Jalen Hurts leadership question mark.
He wore a lot of Adidas yesterday.
Did he?
Or
I didn't
Monday.
even notice.
Did you not notice? Shoes and shorts, both Adidas.
Whatever you get away with.
Kansas would try and recruit him.
It makes you wonder. Maybe he already has a deal in place with Adidas. Maybe that was Alabama's thing.
Alabama's Nike.
I know, but that would be genius.
They set
though, wouldn't
guys
it?
up with Adidas.
Yeah.
Well, the way Adidas works, I wouldn't be surprised entirely. I guess.
This where it won't look like against. I mean, like that's what got Kansas in trouble. Is all those guys were Adidas guys.
Yeah.
Like even when they went to the NBA, they stayed Adidas guys. And you're just like, yeah, that something's going on there, and there is. Okay, so you heard Lincoln Riley in the open there say, "I'll play it again for you," because I forgot to mention something, which I will do. But here was Lincoln Riley being asked about Kennedy Brooks in the open.
Yeah, he's doing good. He's all good. All good. He'll play this week.
Does that go right along with Trajan Bridges has not changed positions, so that'll be the end of that?
You can build an excuse with the weather. It wasn't worth testing Brooks on that type of footing.
But, I mean, why say he'll play
It's all
when you
about the
don't,
weather with you, Bob.
you don't need to play him against Kansas? I mean, let Rhamondre Stevenson get some carries. There's a lot of people that are like, some people, it's with everything. It's just like, why didn't Jaden Davis play more? Why did what was wrong? What's wrong with Grant Calcaterra after last week?
I think this is a good spot to be for Oklahoma, though, because that means everything's going well enough that they want more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's like a sign that things are going well is when you start bitching about who's getting playing time, not
but we
want to
do
kill
it.
the coordinator.
Like, we do it too.
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think
It's equal
Rhamondre
opportunity
Stevenson
bitching.
would be playing. Rhamondre Stevenson would be starting at
Texas.
how many schools?
Like Texas would be
115.
He would
at
be
least.
Right.
like Texas really wanted him bad. Like he would play all the time at Texas, especially as much as Ingram gets hurt.
Well, I mean, they wouldn't have to play, a former quarterback at running back. I mean,
and he gets run at the running back position. Like he gets carries.
And like you wonder for him, like if it's frustrating where he's like, well, okay, there's that. But at the same time, there's got to be a reason every Texas running back goes down. Like, like what's happening here that I'm super fresh in week 5 and half their roster is dead.
He might have had a leg amputated if he went to Texas by now.
Yeah. I mean, it would just be a flesh wound, but sure. No, I think that's I said the same thing, Eddie, earlier this week that Stevenson could start almost anywhere. And I can't imagine. I don't think there's anywhere in the country he'd be number 3.
No, I agree. Right. I like what we see in just very small doses. I think he could almost, in a way, end up taking on that Trey Sermon closer role that he had 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's a good point.
When you wear him down, you're able to do that. Now, the other question mark, I guess, the true question mark going into this week is, are they going to be able to wear people down just for the fact that they might have to use some reserves in the starting role on the offensive line? I think they will.
Yeah. And I mean, we saw Adrian Ely, over the week. He's walking around. You had him in the sights and sounds, It doesn't. I don't know what his injury is, but it's strange to me that Lincoln was so open-ended with him and wasn't even like he's close. We thought maybe we'd have him back. Like he's just out.
The use of the word indefinite really threw me for a loop.
Me too.
He backtracked. He went from week to week to indefinite in the same sentence, basically.
Which is, I don't know how that works.
And then somebody, brought some stuff up about Swenson on the board. But Eddie, you were telling me even, I think, before we
talked
did
about
the
it on
podcast.
the postgame.
Yeah, we talked. Yeah.
Like you saw him, it already looks like he's got something on his knee that's more precautionary than most people.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was a soft brace. It wasn't something that he wore during the game because I went back and looked at the at our video and he had like would it be a soft brace? I don't know what the. I guess I need to do some research on braces, knee braces.
More like a big wrap?
Yeah, it wasn't the type of brace that you see those guys normally wear on Saturdays when they play. And all the Oklahoma offensive linemen wear them. I'm sure if you watched the game, you would know what I'm talking about. But he was definitely hobbled a little bit.
He was the first guy out. After the second half, he didn't see a snap. Mm-hmm. Before McIver was in for Humphrey, Proctor was in for Swenson. So you knew something was up.
Yeah, I would imagine that you see Proctor play left tackle, and they go with the same thing that they did on the right side against Tech with Bray Walker and Tyrese Robinson. How do you think those guys played against Tech, Josh?
My first glance at it, I didn't think Tyrese Robinson had a great day, but as I went back and watched, I thought he played really well at right tackle. I think he's, just one of those guys that's just good. Like he's going to be okay almost anywhere they want to put him, and it almost makes you wonder if they feel like they can't get that left tackle thing figured out, maybe here in a month when they have that they have that next bye week, do we throw around Tyrese Robinson some at left tackle and see what that looks like? Because, we know Bedenbaugh is more than willing to experiment and mess around. Would he do it in the middle of the season? I don't know. But it's an interesting idea because, like I said, he didn't look like he missed a beat. He was really good, was turning guys inside, doing all the things they need him to do. And Robinson is not the kind of guard that's like this big, heavy, plodding guy that I don't think could work at tackle. He's plenty athletic. He's just more of a guard frame. So it would be kind of an interesting conversation.
When we talked to him yesterday, he wouldn't give us any indication of where he's practicing this week, but he did say he knew like last Monday that he was going to be at right tackle, and he said he played the position all 4 years in high school, so he didn't feel that uncomfortable going into that role.
I felt really good. I got a good head nod from Marquis Hayes in the parking lot when I was leaving the press conference Monday.
That's a guy you want to be on your side of things.
Yeah. I said he looked at me, he started smiling, and he head nodded, and I was like, man, I haven't talked to him in like 2 years. Like, I guess we did talk. No, we talked to him at the bowl game, Eddie. We did a really good interview with him at the Orange Bowl last year.
Yeah.
but it had been since then since I'd talked to him, and I said, you got to stop causing fires on social media, because he put up that I don't know if you saw his tweet or not, him standing over the defensive tackle for Texas Tech, and what did it say? You're not about that life, or don't pretend like
Something
you're about
like that. Yeah,
I believe it was "You're not about that action,"
Oh, okay. There you go. Thank you, Josh.
which is one of my favorites. I love that stuff.
I wonder if he wanted the smoke.
Oh, God. We're a week away from the smoke, huh?
I think a ghost might visit me over the weekend.
Interesting. So, yeah, but he started laughing, and I said, no, I thought it was funny. I said, keep it up. And but, I mean, I think Marquis Hayes, Josh, I mean, you've studied it more on the Monday Morning Idiot, but he seems to be a guy that's starting to kind of come into his own a little bit. That makes it easier for them on the offensive line when they're moving around or not having a guy here or there.
I think he's Oklahoma's second best lineman right now, and I don't think it's all that close, to be honest. I mean, and like I said, I think Tyrese is a really good number 3, but Hayes, with his physical, somebody asked me if a good comparison at guard for him, and it's hard to draw one because he's so big and
he's
long.
So big.
Yeah, and his arms are like, you look at that picture that we were joking about earlier with the "You're not about that action." Like, his arms are like down to his knees. Like, he is huge, just all the way around, and he looks more like a tackle when you look at him because of that length. He's just so damn big, but at the same time, I mean, like, he's physical inside. He's one of those guys, when he gets his hands on you, it's over. I mean, he's just so overwhelming, and I really thought, he was a guy that was kind of rough coming out of high school, was kind of raw, had a lot of work to do, but you saw the physical talent. But I thought when he hit the field, okay, we'll see some more rough spots. He really, I mean, from game 1 to here, he's gotten better and better, but there hasn't been that moment where you're like, ooh, that's a little rough right there. That's pretty bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure Bill Bedenbaugh is seeing all kinds of things, but just from a general, is this a quality level of play he's putting out there, it's been really, really good.
Well, I remember last year it didn't start till toward the end of last year, but, you start getting into bowl preps and stuff like that, but you were always kind of like, you knew there were so many young offensive linemen in the program, and we'd always ask, like, defensive guys that were going up against them on scout team, like, who's standing out to you? And nobody ever really singled him out, but they kind of started doing that later on in the season. At some point, something clicked for him, and I don't know if it was physical or whatever, but you're right. I mean, when you see the guy, he's starting to look imposing, just physically and just attitude-wise. He seems like a guy that's starting to, carry an attitude with him.
Oh, I mean, you start with him and Swinson and Creed, and then you put, Robinson at guard's not particularly large, and then Ely. I mean, that's just huge.
Ely looks intimidating too. Yeah.
Yes, like Ely is one of those guys that, as big as we're talking about Hayes, Ely's bigger. And it's just crazy that they have so much size, how much it's changed. Someone asked me yesterday in board chat about, like, why don't you recruit more tight ends, like they used to do with, like, Lane Johnson and those kind of guys and turn them in. I'm like, I always preferred those kind of guys, but you can't argue with what Bedenbaugh's doing with these guys. I mean,
the other thing, he doesn't need to. Like, I mean, Lane Johnson was a necessity. I mean,
yeah,
they were not recruiting particularly great in that period of time. They needed
a necessity
to steal
and an actual exception to the rule. Like, those Lane Johnsons just don't come around.
Yeah. But, I mean, if they didn't need offensive tackles so bad, then, I mean, they would have been like, let's just keep him at defensive end. Or, I mean, they tried him all over the place.
Well, guys, Darrell Williams in the class of 2010 was a big get for OU. 4-star offensive lineman, big-time guy. He wasn't even a Rivals 250 guy. Oklahoma has 4 Rivals 250 guys in this recruiting class. Like, I mean, that just tells you how much it's changed with the way, Oklahoma's offensive line recruiting. I mean, they really do. They go out, and any guy in the country, they can walk in that door.
Well, remember, Josh, I mean, we'd go out to practice, and it was like there was a time at OU when you go out to summer camp, and if you saw, you would see 5 or 6 offensive linemen like, well, maybe he could play here. Like go back to like Bronson Irwin days or Dylan Dismuke days, where guys were like, you're like, okay, he might not be an All-American, but he can play at OU. Like, and then I remember when Darrell Williams and Tyrus Thompson, is that right?
Yeah.
When
Thompson.
they came and camped together, right? They were there at the same time.
Yeah, that is right. And Tyrus was already committed, and Darrell wasn't. That's right.
And we were just like, whoa. I mean, like we were blown away that they could have two guys like that
That's what offensive linemen
on
look
campus.
like.
But I mean, they were so much better than. And Darrell Williams looked like he was so athletic and like you hadn't seen that in a while. Even though we had Trent Williams that we covered and all that stuff, it was like now you got to summer camp like. It's the elite of the elite. Like, we have to go to Rivals 5-star camps to see the type of guys that fit in Oklahoma's offensive line right now.
Well, yeah, remember, before OU offered, we saw Marquis Hayes at the Rivals camp, and we were like, I think maybe he could be an OU guy. And then we saw him.
Well, we were kind of responsible for him blowing up. I mean.
There was some of that, because we were like, who the hell? Like, I remember we were tweeting about it and talking about it on the board. It was, I mean, like, there was some connection for sure, because I think at that point he had, like, Illinois, Missouri. I mean, like, he had really local teams that were looking at him, and he was clearly a national level offensive lineman. And then he went to 5-star and just kicked ass and took names that year.
Yeah.
And you were kind of like, okay, that's like OU needs to be all in on that guy.
And I think they took notice didn't they kind of take notice after the regional camp because he was MVP there, kind of kept in contact, and then after that, it was like, okay, this guy's legit. Need him.
It's a lot like Cody Ford. It's almost the exact same scenario. I saw Cody in Louisiana, and about a week later, OU goes by to see him. Whether that's coincidence or not, I'm not here to say. But the same time,
just give it up to yourself, Josh.
Exactly. I mean, I'm going to let others do that. So
there are people that we don't want to hear that.
But then you've got Hayes was kind of the same scenario where I think his was a couple weeks down the road. OU goes by and sees him. I think ends up making offer a couple weeks beyond that. So it was like a month after the regional camp. But they were like, I still got the feeling that it was kind of half-hearted. Like, we're kind of in, kind of out. We don't know. And then after the 5-star, it was like, okay, because I mean, they could see the video of him going head-to-head with Marvin Wilson and some of those guys. Like, they knew he was really friggin' good.
Let me ask you this, and Bob, you can weigh in on this as well. Is Oklahoma at the offensive line position, is Bill Bedenbaugh recruiting at the highest level that any position coach has ever recruited at? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I guess you could probably make that argument, couldn't you? With the 2020 class they have coming in, with what they have on campus, combine that with what they actually have done on the field, I would think that position, and we could even open it up even to, I guess, the last 20-something years, even counting the Stoops era, are they recruiting at the highest level ever for a position?
I think that conversation can be had, but you know what's scary? If you're going to have it, you almost have to include, if you were going to say, who were the other competitors in that conversation?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of, is what other positions would that be?
Lincoln Riley right now at quarterback.
Yeah,
Yep. Sure.
Yeah.
Dennis Simmons
that's the most
right
obvious.
now
Dennis
at wide
Simmons at
receiver.
but
I mean, like, that's crazy. Like, you might have the three best guys doing it over the last 20 years all on campus at the same time on the same side of the damn ball.
here's the
Cale Gundy,
difference.
mid-2000s running back.
Yeah, running back, you're right. DeMarco and Adrian, that's a great one.
The one different, it feels like for some reason, offensive linemen don't get scared by what's happening in previous classes. Like, they're not worried about you're seeing it. There was Spencer Rattler, no quarterback wanted to jump on 2020.
It was probably because of the numbers, right? You get 5 out there at one time instead of...
Yeah, I mean, you have Bridges, Hazelwood. No one from 2020 really seems to be wanting to leaping. Or you had Rambo, Brown, and Lamb. 2018 receiver class didn't pan out very well. But at offensive line, it's like no one really cares. They just keep coming.
Here's the real question for me. Can you compare what Bill Bedenbaugh is doing? And not that it's equal, but can you compare it to what he's doing with offensive linemen to what Alabama does with defensive linemen?
To some degree. What's
There's not
scary,
as many 5-stars on the offensive line as there are defensive line, I would venture to guess.
Yeah, because I think, and largely that's built on it's a little easier to evaluate defensive linemen. I mean, are they twitchy? Are they big?
And it's explosive? A more premium position.
Exactly. I mean, there's something to be said for that, because unless you're a tackle, you've got to be pretty damn elite to be a 5-star.
Yeah.
And on the defensive line, if you're elite, it doesn't matter where you line up. Everybody in the country is going to want you. Those guys are just so hard to find, which is why you see offensive or defensive linemen get moved to the offensive line and not vice versa, because you just can't replicate that athleticism. But, I think I had a whole train of thought and I lost it with that question. But, yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, like I said, what they're doing is unbelievable. I guess Kerry, I'm trying to think of the 2000s. There's got to be someone I'm forgetting. I mean, Brent Venables did some pretty great stuff at linebacker for a while there with, you go back to Chris Patterson, some of those big-time guys he landed
Well,
in
you
that
go
era.
with Lance Mitchell and Pasha Jackson.
Sure.
2 5-stars
Zach Latimer.
there.
Latimer was a 5-star in that class.
He was. He was people don't remember that. He was a top 100 national guy.
He gets so forgotten. He was like a 3-year starter. Like, people act like he was like trash. I'm like, that dude played for a long time, was a really good I mean, it wasn't great, but he was a good player.
But yeah, I would say, Rocky was already here. But then Torrance Marshall, you bring him in, then you go to Teddy Lehman. Yeah, I mean, really,
Rufus.
Really, it was nonstop, and then Ryan Reynolds was supposed to be the one to kind of continue that, and then injuries just kind of derailed him. Mm-hmm. And then it just got weird for a while.
Well, I mean, you had Austin Box, who, if it wasn't for all his injuries, and that sort of yep.
Look, if Austin Box had not gotten taken out in that OSU game, he was poised to become a great linebacker at Oklahoma, and I mean a great linebacker.
Yeah, I think he'd still be in the NFL right now, in my opinion. I thought Austin was he's one of those guys that I don't think people around Oklahoma high school sports do appreciate. But if you didn't see him, I don't think you realize how big and athletic he was. I mean, Austin was 6'2 plus 6'3 and could run as well as any strong safety. I mean, he was a very talented dude.
You've always told the Alan Trimble story, just as far as, didn't Trimble say that he was one of the best players he's ever coached against?
Yeah, no, I mean, and I know I've told on the pod, so I mean, I'll keep it brief. But for those who haven't listened, Rivals was considering dropping Austin Box, and I was like, man, that's crazy. I don't like that at all. I think we had him in the 70s, and I already thought that was a little low. So I went to Alan Trimble because Enid had played Jinx that year in the state title game, and I said, Coach, what do you think about that? And he goes, that's crazy. He's one of the best high school football players I've ever played against. That was 20 years into his Jinx run. And I remember sending that to Krabby and Mike Farrell and all the guys in the rankings room. And I was like, guys, listen here. This is not just me. This is an opposing coach. Listen to him. And, they didn't end up dropping him. I mean, it carried enough weight that was a big part of my argument. Just don't be crazy with this.
I do want to mention our presenting sponsor, Midfirst Bank. And look, I have a question for you, Eddie, first. How old were you when you first got your first real credit card?
That my parents knew about?
That they didn't.
I had to gamble some way in high school. Probably 2020, I guess. College. Or no, 19 maybe.
I'm just curious because of all the times that we'd send you out on the road, and it was you seemed like a credit card was a foreign form of currency.
I just used cash.
Was it because your gambling debt was filling up your credit card and you didn't want to?
No, I just never really messed with it. I really can't remember.
I don't know why you didn't seem to be a credit card guy. Of course, you couldn't
rent
a car until you were 25.
I don't think I just ever needed one.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it's all the hotel rooms I've had to sign for and fax. The only reason I had a fax for most of my life is just to send stuff to hotels, authorizations for people to stay places. Anyway, the reason I was asking is because everybody kind of wants to be able to have that OU credit card that you can whip out whenever you go into the store to show everybody kind of your OU. You want to show people you're an OU fan all the time. Well, Midfirst Bank is proud to be the exclusive provider of the OU credit card, and we're proud to be partners with them and let you know if you go to midfirst.com/U40, that's midfirst.com/U40, just type in that web address on your phone or on your desktop or laptop, and it'll take you to the page where you can apply for the OU Rewards credit card. You get a big OU logo right on there. You can redeem your rewards for cash back, gift cards, merchandise, travel. You can also, every time that you use your OU Rewards credit card from midfirstbank.com or midfirst.com, you get entered for a chance to win the ultimate game day experience, and every qualifying purchase earns you a chance to win the ultimate game day experience with VIP tickets to a football or basketball game, plus $500 in a prepaid Midfirst OU debit card. So you can enjoy 0% off for the first year, and after the introductory 0% APR for the first 12 billing cycles, then you go to an APR based on your credit history. So apply today for the official currency of OU and deepen your Sooner pride with every purchase. So midfirst.com/U40. Thanks to Midfirst Bank for being a great sponsor and a great partner of the Unofficial 40 podcast. So I mean, we don't have to. We can look forward if we want to. We can talk about Texas. Like, we're not playing the game.
I want to see how Texas does in Morgantown too.
Really think that West Virginia's capable of giving them a fight at all?
A fight? I don't think they'll win, but I want to see how Texas responds in a road
because they had last week off, which kind of sucked.
And
Texas hasn't played a road game.
They've been playing at home. That's what they've been playing at home. So
is this their first road game?
I mean, they had LSU at home.
Yeah,
they had I
think it is.
Rice was at Houston, but whatever the NRG Stadium thing. But I mean, did anyone really care?
Oh, okay. I
about
see
that neutral site thing.
No.
So.
Well, I mean, some programs struggle at NRG, but
well, Houston will bring fans to NRG. Rice will not.
No,
they don't have enough fans to bring.
That would be accurate. Well, I put it. They might have fans that care, but not enough to speak English that could get into NRG.
Okay, this is officially.
Wait. Did we just try to claim that Rice has a lot of Mexican fans?
No,
illegal
I'm
alien fans?
Not Mexican.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, they have a lot of. Okay, I'm not going there.
Yeah, I'm officially lost, and I live in Houston, so I don't know what the hell's happening.
I think he's saying Asian community.
So Jamambo would feel very comfortable.
Oh. I don't know. I'm still lost.
We're talking about Chinese people.
Oh, okay.
People that
you were talking about Asian girls everywhere.
Asians that just don't care about football is basically what I'm talking about. If we want to just put it out there.
Is that a big student population at
Yeah,
Rice?
I think there's a huge international collection of students at Rice. In fact, I think it's the biggest international student body in the country, maybe.
My head was literally bouncing all over the walls trying to figure out where you're going with that. No, but I mean, I think Sam Ehlinger, having an experienced quarterback, if you're going to play a shitty team on the road, I think you're just fine.
If Texas is the team that I think they are, they go win by 2 touchdowns, and it's really not even a very competitive game.
And that would get me fired up for next week. But if they struggle, then I don't know.
Here's the thing.
Texas favored by 11.
Here's the thing about that game, and we've talked about this before, and Dana Holgerson's not there, but there's a little bit of a rivalry there because of the whole horns down thing from a year ago.
Sure.
Which kind of started it all.
No, it did. For sure. It definitely did.
By the way, shout out to George Stoya for uncovering the horns down
edict
cover up
ultimatum that has been issued to the whole. Okay, so Stoya had talked to some people, obviously in either the Roughnecks or in the cheerleading or the pep booster, the whatever, and said they said that they had been told that giving the horns down was no longer allowed, and to go and scrub their social media accounts of like any evidence of giving the horns down? Are you kidding me?
It's so outlandish. I almost just
So
I want to
stupid.
know when the bit's going to be over. Like, when is this? This is a bit, right?
It's been a long con
And like
here.
even Joe Castiglione went on record to talk about it and did not deny one bit that, in fact, seemed to reinforce that had happened.
I just want to know how we got here. How did we land at this point?
I don't know. Like,
that the horns down has become. It's a storyline. Like, it is legitimately. It's a storyline, and it's unbelievable.
how do you
to me.
let your key rival dictate your policy? That's what I want to like. Joe
Being pussies
C,
about it.
come on, dude. You know, I mean, you care about the fans and the outreach, and you want everyone to feel like they're a part of things. I know you care about that. You cannot tell your fans not to do something or that you don't approve of something that, one, they love, and two, just because Texas is bitching and moaning and crying about it.
I just don't understand how that even enters the realm of unsportsmanlike.
I know.
Like, how is that even sportsmanship?
I know. Like, well, like you said, gateway hand gestures.
Yeah, oh my God. I mean, that just gives assholes like me more fuel.
I know. I can't wait to see what you're going to come up with next week.
My whole thing is, so, like, are they going to be watching people when inevitably the Texas fight chant starts, and in the middle, when everybody says Texas and every OU fan screams sucks, like, are they going to be watching their cheerleaders and be like, she mouthed it, I saw her do it? Like, I mean, like, how far does this go?
I mean, Texas, in the middle of their Texas
Says, "OU
fight,
sucks."
they yell, OU sucks at the top of their lungs.
Are they going to be penalized?
Yeah, I mean, are they going to, like, is Joe going to send, like, a strongly worded letter, like, listen, we'd really like this to decrease as well, thank you. We've met you in the middle on the horns down.
I mean, look, I love, like, historical, like, explaining things. Like, Josh and I have had this, like, I'm into watches for a different reason that Josh is into watches. Like, I love the history. I love the fact that, like, this watch was the first one that the astronauts wore when they landed on the moon. And so, but the reason that OU is in this position is because every team in the old Southwest Conference, that was the thing to come up with a hand gesture. Like, there's a reason that Baylor does that stupid gig 'em, or sick 'em Bears. And the Texas A&M is the thumb up. Like, that's the dumbest. That might be the dumbest one. SMU has one. Like, TCU has
the horn frog
the
thing.
little hooked fingers, and then Texas has the horns. Like,
And Arizona State has the shocker. Everybody knows that.
that's Houston. Houston actually has the shocker.
What is Arizona State's? Isn't that the same thing?
I think they're the same. Yeah.
Oh, they
Arizona
need to battle
State's
that
definitely
out.
a shocker.
I guess
But, like,
Houston has to send their hottest girls, and Arizona State has to send their hottest girls, and we'll have they'll battle it out.
The shocker battle. So, but OU never had to come up with a stupid hand gesture because they weren't a part of all that stuff. I mean, they were like 1915, but they got the hell out of there really fast. So, like, OU has no, like, when you take a picture, there's no it's developed into the horns down as the de facto hand sign for OU. And yes, it's kind of dumb. Like, when you stand back and think about it, like, it's dumb. Like, and I even have, very close friends that, graduated with honors from OU. Like, they're kind of snotty about it. I mean, Eddie, I'm sure you guys all have these people too. Like, I hate that we do that. Like, it's just, I wish we didn't recognize, because like you grow up and you hear all, like, Texas A&M with their fight song and having a whole verse in it about Texas and just how stupid that seems. It's like, there are some people,
At
legitimate
the heart
OU
of it, though,
fans
that is what makes college football so great,
Yeah,
isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, the going neck and neck at the fan bases and everything that goes into the OU Texas game. I mean, they play at the goddamn State Fair of Texas.
Yeah.
It's just insane to me that this is where we are. And that it's not only that this
It
is
is
this is
baffling.
where we are, and it's not just crazy ass liberals that are upset about this. It is being encouraged by administrations at universities. Let's stay away from it.
Is it just the height of the millennial attitude?
I don't even know if we can blame this on millennials.
Well, but
How
I mean,
can you
I
blame
feel
it
like
on millennials?
I see how this is how you can blame it on millennials, because everything around that campus is geared towards making kids feel safe and nurtured, and like they're lost in that culture.
I almost feel like it's olds trying to think like millennials that are now the problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
I could buy
Yeah.
that.
No,
I could buy because there's no student on that campus that was like, listen, Mr. Castiglione, the horns down. It's bothering me. Now, maybe Joe watched Eddie's video, and Eddie was such a convincing actor, he actually thought Eddie was one of his students. Like, he's like, this young boy is so worried about the horns down that, I mean, he's almost crying in his living room in his sports coat.
By the way, where have you been keeping that sign? Like, did it still?
It's in my trunk for some reason. I don't know why.
Trunk for
I
12
was like,
months.
how do you like have it folded up a special way that you carry it with you all the time?
I keep it in my backpack
Like,
just
the,
in case.
The fact it
You never know.
survived.
No, it's been
I was
underneath my golf
shocked.
bag. So
The
I
sign I'm talking about is
can't
the
believe it
Sam
was still
Ehlinger
there.
tweet. Did you like go to Kinko's and have that made?
yes.
That's almost 12 months ago.
Yeah, it's been in there for about a year, just in case.
Okay. By the way,
It's
continue.
crazy though that it's incredible to me that this is where we are. I think that it's an overreaction to a reaction, but I think Josh, you might be onto something. I think when the OU Student Council went in to get the Pledge of Allegiance removed, which is to be bothered by that, you have to be the biggest fucking idiot in the world.
I might actually let that F stand.
I mean, it's incredible to me,
warranted.
like that people. I almost made a really bad analogy. I'll tell you guys afterwards, but
yeah.
I think it would have gotten.
Let's keep the
we
long
would have
bleeps
lost. We would have
out.
lost sponsorships, but it's just incredible. This is where we are. That people get offended by this stuff, and I guess that might make me an olds at some point, but I just
No, but you're
I
right.
don't know
There's
how we've gotten here.
They've redefined. They've redefined offended. I mean, literally, like what you do in order to offend someone, like that's the horns down is not it. Like all because Sam Ehlinger tweeted out that crap.
That's it. That's all. That's why I said they should do the Georgia-Florida 2007. You score your first touchdown. Everyone goes in the end zone, does the horns down. You get your 15-yard penalty. You move on.
I mean, shit, Bob. The way that things are headed, the Big 12 might just come out on the field and in the game if they do that.
Well, you remember how they phrased it at Media Day? It can't be in an unsportsmanlike way. I don't even know what that means. Like you can do it to your own fan base or something, but you can't do it in the direction of Texas fans or players.
Oh, my God.
It was a weird, convoluted message.
Well, and it's always good when a rule is hard to understand. That's usually when a rule really works. So,
Yeah, right.
You know, my whole thing with this is I've really, and you know, credit to Texas fans, I've very rarely seen any note, whether it's on Twitter, Facebook, any of the crazy places things happen, that Texas fans were ever pissed off about it. Like, I mean, like, it was just part of the trash talk. It was no big deal. They didn't care.
No,
it wasn't until Sam Ehlinger and Tom Herman went on the warpath that this like suddenly became like this is hurting people. People
And
are
what
really
just
bothered
a
by
strange thing to like go after in a way. Like how would that even?
It's a diversion
it
to
was
stop looking
them-
at his record.
Yeah, it was them crying, like, you know,
Yeah.
deflecting.
Losing at home against West Virginia. That's how you get people
Yes,
to stop
exactly.
stop talking about
Thank God, Will Greer.
Thank God for Will Greer.
You know, it will be.
So
Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, so what's the retaliation for this? I think if you're an OU player and you score a touchdown, rather than throwing the horns down, you do the Tom Herman backpack thing. Like, I think that's the best way to fight
Ooh,
back.
yeah,
Like,
that would be good.
Well, that's
'cause,
what I
like, it's a
suggested in my
direct
video this
shot
week.
at the problem. I missed it, Eddie. I'm sorry.
I just
didn't mean to
saw-
steal your
I
You
just
material.
didn't see my video?
Wow.
No, I
haven't watched
thought
it
you
yet.
were.
Wow.
I thought you were just alluding to the fact that the horn down is terrible. Not as bad as this though, kind of thing.
Well, when he because
Something they could pick something classier
Yeah,
to
okay.
celebrate with.
Drew Lock, right?
Yeah.
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 So
Although he seems kind of like a douche, though.
Eddie, I do want to explain this. Since, I mean, again, it's Kansas week. We might as well fill up this time with whatever we can fill it up with.
By the way, let me throw this in there. No,
you bastard!
I'm sorry, it's a sponsorship. All right, we got to get this in
Right now?
Well,
now?
Yeah, we've been talking about this forever. We need some breathing room here, but
sure,
we are talking about OU Texas, and I know I saw some people talking about ticket prices and how crazy they are. It is going to be difficult, and I'm going to tell you, I don't know if you want to get messing around with trying to buy tickets last minute, and we have a solution for you, and that is SeatGeek, our fine sponsor of the podcast. Get those tickets now. I know there's sticker shock out there. I know it's going to hurt. I don't think you can wait for Kansas and West Virginia to pull upsets this weekend. It ain't going to happen. So you might as well just bite the bullet before this thing continues to go up and up and up. Go to SeatGeek, download the app. They've got tons of tickets on there, a lot of different prices. So I'm sure it's not going to be as low as you want. But like I said, it has to be done. Just rip off the Band-Aid and go do it. So the thing about SeatGeek, easy to navigate, easy to get through. They show you all throughout the stadium where the good deals are, where the best deals are. And guess what? You're going to overpay from what you're used to, but they're going to show you all across the stadium what's considered a good deal, what's considered a bad deal, who's trying to rip you off, all that stuff. So just the app is great. It's got over 50,000 5-star reviews. Great customer satisfaction. They pull together millions of tickets from all over the web. And then, like I said, they rate the deals on a scale of 1 to 10. So I view SeatGeek. Eddie, Josh, all of us have used SeatGeek. Love the app, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Used it for the Cubs game. What was that, in July? It was August. It was very easy.
I will be using it for an Astros playoff game here very shortly. So,
are those tickets hard to get?
It's becoming more so. A couple years ago, it wasn't that bad when they made their first run because I think everybody was kind of, what's this going to be like? And in the divisional series was the Royals that year, so like it wasn't, there's not a lot of drive for it. But this year, I think will be a little different. So.
Yeah.
Did you go half and half with Mattress Mac?
Oh, that's a pretty good deal. By the way, if you do go on SeatGeek, let me get this out there real quick. You'll get $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. All you need to do is use our promo code. Download the SeatGeek app today. Use promo code SCOOP for $10 off your first purchase. I know that's not going to mean a whole lot if you're talking about OU Texas tickets. Hey, but $10 is $10. So that's promo code SCOOP for $10 off on your first purchase. And by the way, Royals did win that series.
SeatGeek is paying for your beer once you get inside the fairgrounds.
Yes.
Which they're going to have, I believe, 26 different
inside the stadium
stands
now.
inside the stadium this year.
Just one last year.
Which is kind of insane, isn't it?
I think it's probably because OU approved beer sales in stadium. Like OU was in charge last year.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
And Texas is in charge this year. I would imagine next year when OU's back in charge, it'll still be 26.
Yeah. Did they split the gate when it goes down?
Sure.
Or not the gate, but the... or does that all go to the state fair? I would imagine that goes to the state fair, I guess.
Well, they get paid by the city of Dallas on top of... But they keep ticket revenue. The schools do.
No, I'm talking about like the beer sales inside the stadium.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I think they keep that stuff. But yeah, the tickets are sold by the schools, so they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So, Josh, I'm sorry. I cut you off, but we had to pay the bills. You have to understand.
No. I can get behind that. No, it was... I was just going to explain to Eddie why I hadn't actually seen the video. The last few days of my life have been interesting, to say the least. I think I've mentioned in the pod before that I am basically in a Mommie and Me swim class with my youngest. And it's me and other women, not other women, me and women and lots of mothers in a swim class all the time. And as has been discussed on the board, yes, I've got several tattoos. Like, I feel like some of the moms are a little scared of me. And then they see me like baby talking little Layla. And I think they're like, well, maybe he got reformed while he was in prison.
It's not like you have a neck tattoo. Come on.
No neck tattoos. The one on my chest
Carrie,
is
not me.
It's something.
Look, neck tattoo thing was way before super, sensitive guy. That bit has been going on for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, we had a guy that was claimed to have a neck tat on the board like way back in like 2010, like it was part of his shtick.
Well, it started with what's his name, Jerkhead Barnes.
Matt Barnes?
Matt Barnes.
Matt
Yeah.
Barnes.
And then Wilson Chandler had his daughter on his throat or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, Matt Barnes is a real look at mental health. I mean, that's a guy that's got it all together.
Well, that's why it started. That
yeah, sure.
People with neck tattoos are bad people. That was Matt Barnes.
Probably even goes farther back to old boy that played for the Pelicans, Anderson.
Oh, Birdman?
Birdman? No,
Birdman.
He was just a druggie.
Birdman supplied Northwest Oklahoma City with ecstasy and cocaine from 2003 to 2007.
All you had to do was go to Market Street, right?
Baker Street.
Baker
Street, yeah.
Yes.
He'd be set up at the back of the bar almost every night I was ever there in that era. But yeah, so anyway, I am literally still in my swim trunks as we do this podcast. From like I take Lainey to school, and then Layla and I go into the swim class, and then I take her to her school, and then I come home, and just about had time to do that and do a few things around the house. And so I'm potting in my my swim trunks. It's been a little bit of an interesting couple of days, but now normal schedule returns. So
Did you see that tweet yesterday from the guy who said he's 27, he bought his first house? What have you done with your life?
Oh, yeah. And it was like a little small house.
Yeah, it was like a little shack.
Yeah, I did see that. It was
and
funny.
The comments were just
She got
fantastic.
ratioed.
Well, no, I mean
It was like a joke.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was like
okay.
it was
Yeah.
like it was like if Eddie had a mullet and he was skinny and he was wearing
What do you
a
mean if I
midriff.
was skinny?
Well, I think your turtleneck photo is determined that
I think I
you
liked
and I
it.
both
I'll
have some
find
work to do.
it. I like it.
But he was wearing a South Carolina cheerleading midriff,
Yeah, I think Oldro or somebody put it out there.
and then he had a four-wheeler. Yeah, that's who.
You'll kinda get the gist
I
of it.
picture Josh looking like that right now, just with his. And he did tell someone. They asked him, "Hey, I like your shorts. What are they?" He goes, "They're swim trunks from so and so."
yeah, like I said, my biggest thing is just how, I mean, pardon the pun, but just a fish out of water.
What's
like
the
I feel
guy's name,
so
by the way?
like,
Just for people that
which guy?
I'm asking Eddie. I'm sorry.
Oh,
The guy that posted all that stuff.
I'll have to find it again.
Oh, dang it. Sorry, Josh.
no, it's fine. Yeah, so it's like I said, it's really awkward because it's all these really nice, like either house moms or just like you can tell they just spend all their days thinking about their little ones, and that's really all they do, and that's cool, that's fine, no judgment. But I feel like they look at me and they're like, he's coming from a little different place, so it's weird, and I don't like it very much.
The name is @userJames, JAYMES. If anybody wants to look up what we were talking about, it was funny. Any of them hot? The moms?
No, I mean
Lookers?
it's not. Yeah, no. Now I will say what makes it really awkward is there is one that watched yesterday, and I don't know who she was connected to because everybody else had a mother in the water, I think, unless there was something I don't understand. But there was somebody watching, and I was like, "Huh, well, hey there, how are you?" But it wasn't like I don't know why she was there. So it was both concerning and
She's probably the lifeguard.
Yeah. That didn't cross my mind. Maybe Layla, thankfully Layla didn't need to have an accident or anything, so we're all good.
All your bases covered down there.
Yep, totally safe. Hi, Tiff. Love you.
Who was the mother that drove her kids into a lake?
I don't know her name off the top of my head.
That wasn't Casey Anthony, right? How did she kill her kid?
Well, there's many options
Allegedly.
out there. Allegedly she was proven innocent in the court of law.
Oh,
but
that's right. They never found, or they
think
found the
we found baby
bones of
Kaylee.
the baby.
I don't know if they did. I can't remember.
No, they did. I remember reading. I remember because of all
Oh,
your
yeah, in a
Casey
shallow
Anthony
grave.
mentions. over the years.
Some people think her dad did it, but
yeah,
that's to be debated on a different podcast.
By the way, can I say that I'm glad that the lady got convicted of murder in Dallas?
Yeah, that was wild. That was
gonna be bad if it didn't
interesting
happen.
story to follow. Just for I guess because it was so kind of local or hyper local, but it was very interesting. I think the jury
got it right.
Yeah, I think the Dallas courts did it right.
That was just
and you had a lot.
Hashtag
You had a lot
awkward
of people
pause.
saying that just. You had a lot of people saying that just couldn't happen. That they weren't going to get her for anything more than manslaughter. So,
I mean, I'm kind of conditioned to feel that way.
I thought it'd be
about
manslaughter.
that stuff.
Yep.
I didn't know that. If we want a sidebar, I didn't know that like Texas doesn't have capital murder. It's just murder or manslaughter.
I didn't know that either.
Until yesterday, and whatever. Either
Good to know.
regardless.
Heading down to OU, Texas.
Parrish
At
Cobb
State
will
Fair
know
Park.
about it at some point.
You should not do anything to help yourself. You continually go after gun-toting, gun-wielding people.
It's kind of like the flow chart that I made a long time ago, and I'll retweet it at some point when somebody gets arrested. But should you commit a felony, and there's two roads, and one is no and one is yes. It always leads back to no.
Right.
For me. That's just a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some others have different ideas on that, but to each their own.
Should we talk at all about Kansas? I mean, just Bob is shaking his head. No,
Seriously,
no.
Whenever someone asks a question about Kansas this week, I hit stop on the camera.
No wonder I was looking for all the Kansas stuff this week. No, I'm kidding.
Eddie's Kansas
It wouldn't
notebook
have
is
made
ruined.
it. It wouldn't have made it.
It wouldn't have made when Eddie made the video anyway. But when someone said how's their secondary, how's their offensive front, or anything,
Well, that's the same person asking that, right?
for the record, it was one person. So I mean, you didn't have to do a whole lot of self-editing. But I do think in just a comparison's sake, I mean, Puka Williams ran wild against OU last year.
Yeah, he did.
And I do think it's kind of like the Tech game in a way that, you know, you go up there, it's a no-win situation. You either play really well and you win by, 30, 40 points, however, I think they're favored by 35, 38 points, or you kind of show that you have a crack somewhere. And I think that if anything, it has been interesting, and we talked about this this morning, Bob, was just the fact that it's been an interesting week as far as talking with defensive players and kind of more so like Alex Grinch, the motivator, as opposed to what you're getting out of the speed D. And I think that is an interesting concept just for the fact that you get the feeling that these guys are pretty bought in. Like, I feel like some of these guys would die for Alex Grinch. They believe in what he's doing that much.
And I think just knowing that the thing that was so detrimental to this team a year ago is that no matter what your defensive coordinator was telling you, you never got any better.
Well, and you just
like
kind of
you never saw the result. Like, you're getting yelled at all the time, but it didn't exactly result in anybody playing better or your defense playing better. Like, I would imagine they lost complete confidence in Mike Stoops last year.
No, I think that
And
there was something like that as far as they just, when change is coming, and obviously everybody did at some point last year. In a way, it was like they just kind of relied on Murray in the offense, and it was like, all right, well, just they're so good, we're gonna just keep this level of shittiness almost, for lack of better terms. I mean, it at some point they had left. There were no stones to turn over, I guess.
There were no 11 guys looking at their wristband all at the same time. Like,
yeah, that's crazy.
Last Saturday.
That video's crazy. Sooner
That
Gridiron
is
put
pretty
out.
cool.
It feels like they're moving in the right direction, and it sucks in a way. And we talked about it last week as far as it just, you don't get any true validation that, well, this defense, it really is. Like, you can say Oklahoma's number 2 nationally in third down conversion rate at like 19%.
Yeah.
Same point they ended last year at 96th in the country. You can say that right now, but it means nothing because they haven't really played anybody.
Oh, trust me. after Texas, if the defense plays well, get ready for the rat poison because it's coming. Everyone is going to declare the defense victorious.
Sure.
For the rest of time. And I'm sure that's the last thing.
It will come
Alex
with more
Grinch would
credence,
want,
won't it?
Oh, absolutely. But you have, I saw somebody tweeting out, hey, when can we buy our hashtag Speed D t-shirts? And then someone tried to go make one on like Teespring or something. Like people, they're ready. They're ready to celebrate this defense. It's still not time, folks. It's still not legitimate to do that.
I will say though,
but after Texas, if they play well, I won't say anything to try and stop you.
I will say, and we talked about it on the post-game pod, just from a atmosphere inside the stadium, you feel like things are different just from the fans' point of view. Like there are people that are excited to watch the defense play as opposed to what you got last year with. It was almost like, oh, God, how long is this going to take? I hope it takes less than 30 seconds. Just get the offense the ball back. Like, everybody was just reserved to the fact that it was so bad. There was nothing. You couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know if you can tell, watching the games, Josh, if that's the case, but it does feel different.
Oh, and I was talking about it, and I heard you guys, obviously I listened to the post game, like a devoted listener that I am. But the thing that followed up the injury to Kennedy Brooks, that drive, you could whether it was the players, the fans, you could tell that whole stadium, it just kicked up about 5 notches. For the place they were at in that game, and it was well in hand, and Oklahoma had complete control, and the fact that it was, it was a 11 o'clock kickoff. It's not like everybody's all lubricated up. It could have been, you throw that into a night situation, and there might have been, who knows what getting thrown onto the field. But you could feel more energy on the defensive side of the ball. And you see, it used to be, we'd joke about, Kenneth Murray made a tackle for, a 2-yard gain, and he'd run over and like he'd made a big play. And we're like, that's what you're supposed to do, man. And now they're celebrating like tackles for loss and interceptions, and Neville Gallimore creating that fumble. There was big plays actually happening on the defensive side of the ball. And that's what a fan buys into. When you're having to get excited about, hey, we got off the field on 3rd down, that's tough to sustain for 3.5 hours.
If you want to look at small victories, I thought just forcing a 4th down on 3rd and 1 was a positive step in the right direction. And they did it twice.
Stoning people at the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Yes. I saw more linebackers in that game step in and fill holes than I'd seen in the last 3 or 4 years. There would be a lane and Deshaun White steps into it. Kenneth Murray steps into it. They're covering their assignment. They're doing, okay, just do your job. Do what you're supposed to do. And, we heard about that with Mike. He would always talk about that. But you're seeing guys actually doing it. Just do the things you're supposed to do and trust the guy next to you to do the same.
I don't want to pile too much on Mike here because I think there's some room for piling on that we've left out. But, boy, Brian Odom has been a huge upgrade over Tim Kish.
Absolutely. Those guys, that linebacking core, it first, you can say core. It feels like there's more than one.
They have backups now.
But, when was the last time? And I'm sure they've missed some tackles here and there, but you feel like those guys can fill holes. They can make a tackle if there's a guy in front of them. Last year,
I feel like this segment should be brought to you by Pornhub as much as you guys are talking about filling holes.
They've done a good job. Yeah, we need to send out an email or something. I could be a contact person on that. It feels like
I can run point on that.
It feels like though that they have a good rotation up front. It seemed like the safeties played better on the back end. They still haven't been tested in a way, but there is a basis, there is a foundation in which you can say there's change. Like it looks good, and even talking to Grinch on Mondays, it's just. I don't know. It's probably because it's new and you haven't heard his spiel for an entire year, and he could just be full of shit. But you buy into the idea that he not only does he believe in what they're doing, but there's something to buy into, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of positives on that side of the football right now. The positives far outweigh the negatives for sure.
I was talking about this earlier today, and I don't even think I said this, but somebody said, Alex Grinch reminds them of somebody because he's not the most exciting person to talk to because he's actually kind of just telling you what he tells his players, and he repeats things a lot. And I remember I was talking to Kevin Wilson one time after I'd got to know him, and he was starting to interview for jobs. And I just kind of said, hey, Kevin, when you interview for jobs, because we were doing a phone conversation or a phone interview for something, and at the end of it, it lasted so long when you talked to Kevin Wilson because he would say the same things over and over again. And that's kind of what Alex Grinch does. And I said, Kevin, after the phone call was over, I just said, Kevin, look, this is my concern for you. It's not about me interviewing you and you people in the media like you, but like you're going in for all these jobs now. You're doing interviews. And you've had some interviews and you haven't gotten jobs that I think you probably should have gotten. Like, Josh, can you remember some of the jobs? Like Southern Miss was one, and Iowa State was one.
Did Kevin Wilson interview for the East Carolina job that Ruffin got?
Yes, Ruffin got the East Carolina job over him. And I said, look, I know you probably wonder, how you do in interviews, but I said, the one thing that would concern me is that you repeat everything over and over. Like, you say the same thing, and you talk for so long that I wonder if people think you're kind of scatterbrained. And I was just being honest with him. And he told me something after that. He said, look, I know how I come off, but the reason I do that is because I'm teaching. And when you talk to young kids, you have to repeat the same thing over and over again because that's the only way you get through to people. And that's what Alex Grinch does. Like, the reason he says the same thing and repeats the same thing and he makes it simple and he wants to beat it into their heads. And that's why the defense is so simple. And that's why, during preseason, all we heard about was, strip kings, strip attempts, like turnovers. Like, he narrows it down to just a few simple things and he just talks about it over and over again. And it's worked.
But I think in a way he presents it in different ways, but it's the same message, if that makes sense.
Right.
So they don't think that he's just repeating himself over and over. It's kind of like we were talking to Bob. You talked to LaRon Stokes, and we put the video up on the board as far as the 4 qualities of a good defense. They have it on the board every day: strain the football, strain to the ball, play together, out physical your opponent, turnovers.
Yeah,
like those are the only 4 things that they have to remember. And it's a very simple message, but yet it has gotten them pretty good results. I also think the thing that came out this week in talking to Grinch was, and I don't know how different this is. I'm sure that other coaches do this, but just the simple text messages thing about sending a motivational stuff in the morning and at night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of cliche, and in a way, in a kind of gay way, it's a little different. But I do think that it's like I think it's very cool. I think that's part of him building a relationship with every guy on the football team on the defensive side.
Yeah.
Like I think that's very commendable for that he does stuff like that, and he relates to the players in a way.
Because you thought it would just be for the starters, and then when he says flat out, it's to every defensive player. It's like he's not trying to put one above the other. He's trying to make sure they're all engaged, so that they can be ready. And that's how you get 31 players to play on defense like they did against Tech.
That's what you want, though, I think. I think that's what you want in a current modern-day coach. Like, he can relate with the players. He's obviously young. I don't know, I don't think he's sitting around and talking to him about the, newest rapper or whatever, but
no,
I do
think
that
he's into that, yeah.
He has a relationship with the players, and I know it's the first season, and there hasn't been a whole lot to go bad yet, but it's just so much different in 180 as opposed to what they had. I think that maybe that's what I'm getting at. It's such a glaring difference. in between him and what Mike was. And I don't think that there's any doubt that that's what Lincoln Riley wanted, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, he needed to reset, and he needed to get the players' attention, and he's done both of those.
Guys, and we were talking a little bit about it earlier, and just like, you guys are talking about how he's getting it done, and people have kind of been like, well, OU hasn't played anybody, and that's not necessarily untrue. I mean, I get it to a point, but they shut down UCLA, absolutely shut them down, who a week later went up and scored 70 in Pullman. Like, I'm not saying Washington State's a great defense, but that's a top 25 team that UCLA went and fought, and played a good game against on the road. And the other thing,
they've been dominant in the first halves.
Yes, and the other thing, people were like, well, Tech didn't have Alan Bowman. Tech put up 314 yards of offense. I don't even need to look. That hasn't happened to an OU defense against Tech since Mike Leach got there. Like, I guarantee it. And the other side of that is, well, okay, they had Jet Duffy. Well, guys, we're not that far away from Kyle Kemp throwing for 343 yards.
Or Zeb Noland or whoever you got on there.
Kansas scored 40 on him last year.
Who was the Collins kid? Was it the Collins kid at TCU last year? What was that kid's name that came in?
And made it a shootout?
Oh, my God. They just started throwing darts all over the field.
Like, that could very easily. We've seen bad defense over the last 3 years.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know how people can look at this group and be like, oh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure they're better. Are you kidding? There's no question. Now, they may not be as good as they've looked, but there's no question they're better than last year. Better than we've seen in a while.
There's definitely a little bit of almost a PTSD effect as far as I think Oklahoma fans have been so hurt by OU's defense, they don't want to allow themselves to believe yet that maybe they could play a little defense.
Guys, we're not, Bob, you can back me up on this. Bob will love to talk about this. We're not too far away from where we just couldn't write anything about the defense. Like, good, bad, like positive, negative. People didn't want any, like, we would have meetings, we'd be like, well, we can't write anything about the defense because even if something good happened, like you just couldn't because it just drove people insane, and there was so much venom from fans just for even mentioning anything about the I've never seen it like that before. I don't think I'll ever see it again.
And it's actually why I didn't write a Kerry Cooks piece last week. Because it brings
You're
out
conditioned. Yeah.
It brings out the hatred and people did not care that Kerry Cooks was back. They didn't care about what he had done for some of those guys.
Yeah, they didn't want to hear that Kerry Cook still doesn't have any hard feelings and still cares about the players.
They did not care anything about that. So I left that story alone because that brings up too many bad memories. I mean, the only thing from last year was when Jalen Redmond came back for those couple weeks, and we wrote about that. And then when he went away, it's like, okay, we're back to not writing about anything.
You would post like your story title on the board, or I would, and it just became a string of F you Max Stoops, F you Max Stoops, F you Max Stoops.
FUMS.
Yeah.
Thumbs.
Just
Thumbs.
everywhere.
I will say, watching that Tech game last week,
You saw Kerry Cook's traits?
Those receivers that never turned around to find the ball.
well, and just the way that
the
CeeDee
DBs.
Lamb was just throwing defenders off of him, I was like, I've seen that before. What's
Yeah.
the common denominator here? Like, I don't know if he just doesn't teach them how to tackle, but all I can go off is track record. And when Kerry Cooks is coaching the secondary, those guys cannot tackle people.
There was some quitting out there on defense for them too. You remember the Trey Sermon run?
Yeah, they just didn't want any.
They just quit.
I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy. I don't think that any of us ever had a problem with him, working with him or whatever. But I thought it was interesting that
all of his guys go
Kerry
soft.
Cook's guys comes to town, and it's like all of a sudden these guys cannot tackle anybody.
Eddie, as our expert, both in the subject matter and as the guy that was on the field, can you confirm they did not want that smoke?
I would probably confirm that. Yes, I would concur.
Sure.
Is Jalen Hurts bigger than any of Texas's linebackers? I think the Osai guy is technically a safety for them, but he plays up on the scrimmage.
He's a DN linebacker.
Yeah, he's a DN.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I was watching the game and they kept calling him a safety for some reason.
He's really good, though.
I like him a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
I will say to Bob's defense, as far as the game in Morgantown this weekend, it is going to be interesting to see how that secondary can piece it
With all
together.
those
I mean,
injuries.
what if Austin Kendall throws for like 350? Not to say he can't, not to say he will, because we haven't really seen that all year. But I mean, I guess they played well in Kansas. They were off last weekend, weren't they?
I guess they're getting was it B.J. Foster back?
I think that I saw he was going to try and give it a go yesterday.
But they're not getting Stearns back, and they're not getting that freshman
I think
back.
Stearns is going to miss the OU game next week.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely seems like he is not in the plans as far as what they're going to bring to the Cotton Bowl.
And Jalen Green, did he tear his ACL? I can't remember.
Yeah, that's the other big.
Yeah, he had
big
surgery, right?
God, guys, he's so good. Like he is. He's one of their guys that nobody talks about, but is a NFL guy all day. And again, I've already done it once. I'll do it again. I told everybody he was better than Anthony Cook. No one would listen. Anthony Cook was the 5-star. Jalen Green starts over him. Jalen Green was just a better talent. He always was.
By the way, the funny thing about that game is, they had their little fights about who DBU was. Both those secondaries
Both of them
are really
were
bad this year.
DBU
I mean,
on
who was the number one guy? Stingley.
Yeah.
He's good, but like everybody else sucks on that defense at LSU.
Well, if you guys, we were talking about in the board chat, somebody was like, well, where do you see the season going? And if OU were to get to the playoffs, how concerned, what do the matchups look like? And it was kind of aimed at, could this offensive line hold up? Alabama's defensive line is not what we're used to seeing. LSU's defensive line, Clemson is not what they were last year. Like, there's nobody that I'm like, man, you're just going to get bullied up front. Like, I don't see that.
Ohio State, everybody might have kind of come back to the pack on Ohio State because they're playing in the Big Ten. They're not playing juggernauts, but Jeff Okuda's really good. They seem like a lot of those. The thing that sucks is that you see a lot of those. You notice a lot of those names that are playing for them, but they're playing good. They're playing.
If
well.
you're gonna get the problem OU's gonna have with the Ohio State situation, if I'm Ohio State, Chase Young is playing right end all night, every single play, and I'm gonna run him at Eric Swinson and R.J. Proctor till they're just sick of him because he's a freak. I mean, he may be better than the Boses. He is unbelievably good. I don't know how much you guys really watched that Nebraska game. If Nebraska didn't double him, chip him, do something with him, he was all over Adrian Martinez all night.
Speaking of Texas, I just saw the Solid Verbal tweeted, wait, does Texas only have 2 road trips with flights the entire season? And now that I'm thinking about it, unless they fly to Fort Worth, I think that would be right. Ames and Morgantown, everywhere else is either at home or, they bus to Dallas, right?
I think so.
I hope so. It's 190 miles.
They might fly to Waco.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, there's no way, right?
No, I'm
It's like 20 minutes.
Although that stretch of I-35, I might choose to fly.
Yeah, you're not lying about that. Interesting.
But yeah, we make that sound super unusual. How much is it really? That's the benefit of playing almost every game, like almost all of your conferences within your own state or easy driving distance.
I looked at it for this way for us too, just the Bruins.
Just UCLA.
We're driving everywhere else.
I guess OU will technically fly to Manhattan though, and they'll fly
to Lawrence,
this weekend.
For the Big J journalist, Bob just means the Sooner Scoop crew. He doesn't actually assume himself as part of the team. So just, so we're clear.
Yeah, I did get an email from Ed Eskridge during our taping here. We will be driving an Eskridge Lexus to Lawrence.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
Well, I won't be there, huh, Bob?
This is correct.
All right.
Recruiting? Anything we need to hit, Josh?
Visits over the weekend? Anything interesting coming out of those, Josh?
Well, the things that I think are interesting are kind of, it's not so much a huge, you got a bunch of commitments, anything like that. I do think they've made a real positive step with Josh Eaton, the Texas corner that came in from Houston. I'm actually planning at this point to go see him Friday night. So that kind of tells you.
Interesting.
I think the tables are turning there a little bit. Now, I think.
And he was kind of a guy that, I mean, like, you feel like Grinch kind of had his ear early and then kind of lost momentum there?
It felt a little that way. I think because there was at one point he was almost dead set to A&M. Like around the 5-star challenge, kind of behind the scenes, he was telling people it's going to be A&M. And then A&M kind of backed away from him, and he ended up going to Texas. But just talking to some people, okay, so to put it, just kind of to make it the easiest way to understand it, he and Princely Emmanueline both came in this weekend. Now, I'm told Texas has no concerns about Princely. He's locked in. I know he told our buddy Jason Sukamel, I'm 100% committed. All that stuff. OU can keep pursuing him. He's never coming to OU. There's no point in continuing. Just cut it and move forward. And I think OU knows that. Like, I don't want to make it sound like they're this isn't a John Houston situation. They know the score. With Josh Eaton, Texas is very much, we don't really know. Like, they don't know what's going to happen. And I think there's also the possibility that Texas could move from him. They might turn their focus somewhere else, almost a we're going to spurn you before you spurn us kind of thing. And so that's a possibility. And Eaton is 6'2" and can run. I mean, he fits the mold that OU has put out there that they want at corner. So I think if you could get him and find a way to get Dante Manning back on board, that's about as good as you could have hoped for in year one in Oklahoma cornerback recruiting.
Josh,
so
go ahead. Okay, yeah, the one name that I was ready for last week, Antonio Doyle. I don't want to say it fizzled, but it doesn't feel like there's any sort of signs that things are headed toward him becoming a Sooner.
I think you're exactly right, Bob. I think from some it's been an interesting week with Princely and Josh. I was able to get some kind of clear answers on where things were, really from both sides of the fence. With Antonio Doyle, it's been a lot more quiet, and his head coach, Carl Reed, I've mentioned him before, I mentioned him last week. He's a guy I know, and he's been very quiet on the situation. It feels like Oklahoma came into the weekend, really wanted to give him their best pitch, really make a run at him, and it feels like almost by like Sunday morning they're like, why even try? It just sounds like he's bought really hard into whether it's just the SEC or just A&M, I'm not sure. But it just sounds like it's not Oklahoma. And I don't think OU is over the moon upset about that, just because Doyle was a luxury. They felt like they got our two linebackers. OU loves Edgerrin Cooper, who I'm going to go see tomorrow night. We'll just shamelessly plug me all around the recruiting circle. But, I guess it just feels like Oklahoma just didn't get anywhere with him, and kind of like Princely, I don't know that OU's given up on him. I'm not going to go. I've heard that reported some places. I'm not going to go that far with it. I think it's just a matter of this isn't something we need to invest all of our Lincoln Riley or Alex Grinch. We can have those guys focused on guys we have a better shot at that we have a greater need for.
Right. If they're set, if Cooper doesn't flip anywhere because of how great he's doing during his senior season and Brendan Walker stays solid, do they want a third? Or you think they are, we got other areas that's where we need to really be looking at?
I think if, the right guy came along, then sure, they'd look at it. Maybe if they found a JUCO kind of late bloomer that they really liked or something along those lines, I think it's a possibility. But at the same time, it's not the must. I mean, they want another safety, which is, I think, is finally something that has been kind of become widely accepted. For a while there, like I said, it was just no. Safety's done. Bryson Washington's it. I think they want someone to go with Washington now. I think they want at least one more corner, probably two. And it may end up being three, kind of depending on what happens with Ryan Watts. That seems very much up in the air right now, really, with Oklahoma and Ohio State. And then you've still got some holes to fill in the defensive line. Oklahoma had a couple of JCs come in for unofficials last weekend from Independence. So there's a lot still up in the air. It's almost entirely defensive, although we got clarification this week that OU likes Jaheim Bell as a wide receiver. And that's an interesting storyline that I hadn't really expected. I kept hearing athlete, and I still think that's kind of the story. But, I mean, he's being recruited by Dennis Simmons. So, I mean, there's and that's not Dennis Simmons' area. So you have to think that's probably the primary idea they have for him right now. So there's a little bit left to do on offense, but really it's just what's going to pan out on defense and how their numbers are. But to kind of wrap up your question, Bob, I think it's mainly a question of you're getting into a point where they're just looking for the best quality. It's not necessarily it has to be this position, it has to be this type. It's just where can we get the most bang for our scholarship, basically.
All right. Any other business we want to hit on before we get out of here?
Two quick things.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma had a good week in recruiting baseball.
Yeah.
They flipped Dax Fulton, kid from left-hander from Mustang. I think it was about a week and a half ago. He was committed to Vanderbilt. So, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about the kid. He's going to stay home, play with Jace Bofrin and Kate Horton if they can get him to campus. I think it sounds like they're pretty confident with at least two of the three. And then over the weekend, they had Max McGuire commit. He's a 2021 kid from Irvine. His dad's obviously Mark McGuire.
Obviously.
So he's supposed to be a big
you
time
act like
power
he's
back.
standing like right here. Like obviously he's a giant man.
McGuire's you say McGuire and kid from Irvine, California.
And you spell with a GW, not a GU.
Sure. He's supposed to be really damn good, though. So it's been a good class. I think this 2020 baseball class, it could end up top 5 nationally. And I think that, it's obvious that they've needed some more talent in the program.
Is there I don't know, what's the connection there with Skip? Is there something with Skip and Mark?
Him and Mark might have some type of relationship. I really don't know. I should ask about that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the other thing, it was good to confirm that Jeremy Pruitt is the wholesome head coach that we all thought he was. Wow. Over the weekend with, or I guess that was about a month ago, with his arrest video coming out with the kid from Tennessee.
By the way, I have
son of a bitch he is.
I have an idea for a video series for you. I'm always having ideas from. I gave you one. Yes, I won't tell.
Mm-hmm.
Or Monday. How about we do, in the style of Tom Amansky, a training video with you and me, with me working on your swing.
We can do that. Maybe get Fred McGriff to come in, fly him in.
Yeah.
We could probably do that.
I could make some good 80s keyboard music for it. You want me to build
80s graphics?
You want me to build a batting cage in my back? Do they have batting cages out at like Andy Alligators? Does anybody know that?
Being that I don't have any children, I don't have any reason to go out to Andy Alligators.
I don't need to know.
Glad you didn't know.
Like, someone tell me, because I don't want to go out there.
When I took my special friend.
Like Perfect Swing, I wouldn't have minded taking you out there because that place is, it would have been
on
run
Highway
down
9?
and yeah.
That place was awesome.
Is that completely torn down now, Bob? You live out there.
I think it's still like the structure's still there. I don't think
the structure's still there, and they're talking about moving like a Norman regional site there, but it didn't pass when it got voted on last week.
But the building still stands, huh?
Just there.
God, I got drugged to so many stupid birthday parties for kids out there.
I don't think I ever went there.
I think it was barren by the time you were in school, maybe.
Yeah, and I think there was a tornado that went through there, and that was kind of like the final.
Yeah, nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's always one of those things, like we have so many people on the boards. There's going to be people like distraught, like Perfect Swing is gone? Yes, it's been gone for 20 years. It's like when you tell people that, something's gone on. By the way, what's this Triple X chicken place that's coming in? It seems like a really bad idea for a name
saw
for
the
a
article.
Campus Corner restaurant.
You're going to have to go try it, see if it's good, I guess.
How much porn? Is it served by, like, completely naked women?
The Sugar's waitress.
That'd be awesome.
All right.
They have a partnership.
Well, if it works, maybe they can contribute to the Skybridge Fund.
Wouldn't say no.
All right. That'll do it. Great show today, guys. The pre-Texas show. We are heading to Kansas. And guess what? More Texas on the way, because as soon as we're done, we might do the Eskridge Lexus podcast from an Eskridge Lexus vehicle as we drive back from Lawrence on Saturday.
Be safe.
I guess I would say, well, not for me, but you guys are going to be in the car. So if we can keep Bob from getting motion sickness while podcasting.
I can't read, so I'll have to just, look straight ahead.
You can't read, Bob.
I can't
I'm so
read
concerned.
so good.
Put it this way: your stat sheet won't be wet because you'll be dry all fucking day up in the press box. So you don't have to worry about
it'll
that.
Probably be like a popsicle.
Terry, will
to
you
be
please
warm.
record?
I think it's supposed to be warm.
I want you to record the audio of Bob being like, "Man, it was just so shitty out there today," and Eddie just like staring daggers at him.
Eddie's already getting triggered about this, which I love.
I gave Eddie a couple waters for the.
He
for
did
the
bring
Tech
down a
game.
couple. I thought I was dehydrated. I was dehydrated.
It
I
was
didn't
a
think.
sneaky hot day.
It's shitty out.
Bob loves stealing things, by the way, just so you know. Especially drinks.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's yeah.
They can put it on my tab.
10 years running.
They're free, but
Bob, but see now, Bob's cheap, so Bob doesn't look at it as stealing. He's just being cheap.
oh no! Before we go down to the game, like the feel like everybody knows this if you pay attention to the instant analysis. And yes, by the way, I was not at the game Saturday because my knee freaking locked up on me, and I couldn't even get to my car.
Olds.
So I'm getting old. So that's why there was no instant analysis. I talked about this on the board, but usually like I have to leave the instant analysis to go down to the field because what they do is they stop the elevators like 5 minutes for the coaches 5 minutes before the game's over, so the coaches can get right down to the field, so they don't miss any plays or anything like that. So you have to go down like at 7 minutes. So right before we go down, Bob grabs a brand new Coke and shoves it in his backpack, one that he hasn't drank while he's finishing off his other one. So he is cheap.
Oh, absolutely. I
can confirm.
I don't drink
And a
Coke
thief.
at the game. I drink waters, and then I put Cokes in my bag.
It's so weird. It's like we employ a thief. All right.
Badass. I think that adds street cred. We've been in a shooting, and we have a guy that steals things from people.
I'm just glad he's not stuffing it full of popcorn and hot dogs.
We need somebody to be charged with a true crime to really get that street cred up.
Coke
And then,
larceny.
What kind of Coke?
I don't know. What?
It's probably a good time to leave.
regular Coke? Not
We've
diet,
self-incriminated ourselves.
Coke or cherry. Sort of depends
Right?
what
I love it when they have cherry Coke.
mood I'm in.
All right, Josh. It's as bad as it sounds. So just know we employ a sketchy character.
Oh, Bob's one of those guys like he's too squeaky clean. You're like, I don't trust that guy.
Yeah, there's got to be something that we're not seeing. Well, that's why, I have to have my spiel about, don't take pictures of cheerleaders. Although UCLA, I would have okayed that, Eddie.
I was underwhelmed.
Were you? I wasn't that close. I just saw from afar.
I was a little underwhelmed.
All right.
I don't think anybody. I'll have power rankings out at some point, but it's going to be tough to unseat
Well,
TCU.
you can't
TCU's that's the
that's
the-
the gold standard.
yeah, that's the standard.
You can't get close to the Iowa State cheerleaders because you've been reported once already.
That is true. That is true.
Not
Deb.
not for inappropriate filming of the cheerleaders, but just getting in their
Be
way.
in the way.
Literally standing where I had to stand. Sorry for doing my job, Deb. I hope you enjoy Brock Purdy.
Okay, that'll do it. We're getting out of here. We'll see
Beat
you guys.
Iowa. Do something.
We'll see you guys on the Eskridge Lexus podcast. Make sure you go subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, wherever you get your podcast, and we will take care of you. So and have that podcast up for you as quick as we can. So thanks to Eddie Radosevich. Thanks to Bob Przbillo. Also the guy named Josh McCuistion, my partner. Appreciate you guys for listening. I'm Kerry Murdoch, and we'll see you back here next week on the next edition of the midfirst.com/U40. Go check out that website, midfirst.com/U40, to sign up for the OU, the official provider of the OU credit card. Until next time, we'll see you guys then. This has been the Unofficial 40 on Soonerscoop.com.